Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. My name's Matthew, and I'm joined today by Roberto Iannone from
Hello, yeah.
based in Switzerland, but you're coming to us from Italy today, Roberto.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Fantastic. And how are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, just back from holiday today, so not too bad.
That's terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here today, Roberto. You're the CEO and founder of a company called Zandrin, which we're going to speak about a little bit today. It's pretty interesting technology, something unique that we haven't heard about. But before we get into that, I'd like to speak for our guests to get to know you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what makes you tick?
Yeah. Well, who I am? I'm 41. I'm 41 years old. I'm a father of two girls. One is 5.5, nearly 6 actually. The other one is 1, 2 girls. That's why I started this company, but we will talk about that later. About myself, I'm an engineer by training. Then I have an MBA, executive MBA at the business school here in Europe. Did management consulting for many years and other jobs, working corporate. Didn't really make it for me. Therefore, at some point, around 4 or 5 years ago, I started my own company. And to your question, what takes it for me? Yeah, I guess when I see something that doesn't make a lot of sense for me, and then I have to do it anyway, just because I have someone above me that actually tells me to do that. Yeah, that I cannot stand. Maybe that's another reason why I started this company, I guess.
That's interesting. So your desire to work for yourself, to free yourself from that chain, was a big driving force. And then you say also for your family. Have you, since starting the company, have you managed to spend more time with your family?
No. I mean, that's a startup, right? You're not supposed to spend more time with your family. If anything, less. No, I mean, in theory, the moment you start a company, you think that you can accommodate a little bit the schedule that you like because, in theory, you don't have to ask anybody. But in reality, you realize very soon it's the opposite. Since you don't have to ask anybody, then basically you're working pretty much anytime. So I was on holiday, but I was working, and as I always do, etc. But yeah, spending more time with the family, no, not really. No, I don't think.
And tell us a little bit, Roberto. Let's start at the beginning today.
Yeah.
And let's start with your universities, your school. I see you've got a MSc in engineering, business engineering.
Great. Yep. Master. Yeah, master.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I studied engineering. I mean the master, so 5 years, let's say. Why I did engineering, I actually don't know. To be frank, I mean, I started this when I was 18, 19, and I guess at the time I didn't know exactly what to do, and I thought, well, if I do engineering, I keep all the options open for me, and that's why basically I started doing that. Do I still use the stuff that I studied? That was management engineering, so it was somewhere between, let's say, the technical engineering, about, I don't know, building bridges and stuff, I guess, and management. So yeah, being a manager of the company, not necessarily running a company. Yeah, I think I use a lot of the stuff that I studied, and even for the stuff that I do not use or I did not use, I still keep maybe the mindset of an engineer. That for me, extreme summaries: take a problem that you know nothing about, divide it into chunks, and find a solution, basically. So that I use every day. That type of approach, so to say, in a logical manner. Yeah.
Nice. I like that. So it wasn't planned. What you studied wasn't forethought, for many years, and you knew, okay, this is what I want to do. You got into it, if I'm right, quite by accident, maybe. But the lessons that you've learned and the value that you got from your studies, you've kept with you through your business life.
Correct. I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. Well, actually, in reality, when I started studying as an engineer, the plan was that I would have sort of inherited the role of my father. He has his own company, like small, medium-sized company in Italy. But then I realized, no, that's not me. At some point, someone realizes who he or she is as a person. I realized I'm not a person that wants to get where he gets because he's the son of somebody. Plus, I don't know, it was also ambition at some point. I didn't want just to stop there, so to say. I wanted eventually to find my own way, let's say. That's why, that plan went away. My plan when I was studying at some point was do that. Then I realized, no, I want to work in big corporates. So to do, the typical career kind of ladder, up to the top. And did different jobs, then realized, hey, maybe the best way to do that is to start as a management consultant. Consultant, not technical, but really management consultant. I thought, hey, that's the best way to learn. Which, to be fair, I think it was true, meaning that I was planning initially to stay there for 1 or 2 years. 1 year, that was the initial plan. I stayed there for 8 at the end, and then I realized that I was not learning too much anymore, so I moved to corporate. Sorry, but maybe I'm jumping.
It's okay. No, it's an interesting channel that, and can we touch on that a little bit actually? So your initial plan was to be there for 1 year, and you ended up there for 8. What happened in that process? Like, how did it change? Did you begin to enjoy it? Were you growing? What was the thing that kept you there for those extra 7 years?
I think I was enjoying it. Yes. I mean, it was super tough. It was competitive and stuff. Super tiring. I was pretty much always traveling, But I realized that I was growing a lot. I was learning. So it depends also. A lot of my colleagues were kind of doing the same type of projects over and over and over for different customers, right? The typical consulting job. While in my case, I happened to be very not specialized at all, so to say. So I was doing a project in a certain area, I don't know, corporate finance. And then, that was one project, 2 or 3 months. And then I was moving to production scheduling. And then I was moving to logistics. And then I was moving to, I don't know, whatever, completely jumping from one area to the other of a company, and also from one segment to the other. I did jewelry, I did textile, high fashion, which I knew nothing about. I did beverage, milk. I did beside insurance and banking, I think, and oil and gas, these 3 main segments. In terms of manufacturing, consumer business, I covered a lot, really a lot. So I was there. I realized, every new project, every 2 or 3 months, it was a new project, new challenges, knew nothing about completely. First day, didn't understand anything that they were talking about. And I was liking the challenge and the constant learning. So that's why I ended up at the end staying there for 8 years.
Nice. I like that. So it sounds to me like the diversity and the ability to gain experience in a wider variety of roles was something that you found attractive. You said you didn't specialize like some of your colleagues or some of your friends. And maybe that's what you found more interesting. I know for myself, I'm the same. I need the diversity to keep it interesting. And if I specialize in something, once I've beaten it, I lose interest. So it has to change all the time to keep me engaged. So you were there for 8 years. And how long was this before you started up Zandrin?
It was around 4 or 5 years. So I quit my consulting job around 4 or 5 years before started Zandrin. I don't know, but around 5.
And did you know then that you were going to get into something like this? Had it been spoken about? Had you thought about it?
Yeah.
Tell us what led up to the creation. So you quit your consulting job, and now you 4 or 5 years before Zandrin. What was going on?
Yeah. So my thought process was: did I think about it, running my own company? Yeah. And the answer, starting a startup, I thought about it, and I thought, well, if there is one thing that I'm sure I don't want to do, is that, right? For me, it was, no. My plan was still the same, okay, I did my consulting job, I learned a lot, I think I can offer a lot, so now let me move into corporate, to go ahead with my going up the ladder and stuff. So for me, small companies, and even more, starting my own company was definitely not something that I wanted. And that's where I joined big corporates. So completely going the opposite direction, I think a 10 or 15 billion company, that was my plan at the time.
And where was, so you went to the total opposite direction, and where was the point that you said, right, here, I have an idea, this is what I want to do? Where did that all take place?
Okay, I think that happened in 2 logical steps, let's say. The first logical step was I landed in this corporate job. And the first step was I realized that was not my place. That happened pretty much immediately. Like after, I'm talking of days, not years, days. Stayed there for 4 years, but in reality, no, I was never fitting there. Problem is I didn't know, so what? Is it the company that is not the right company for me? It's the sector. Is it me maybe that I need to force myself a little bit more, So step number 1 was understand that I was not fitting there. Step number 2 was what you said, understanding that no, actually what I want to do is start my own company. And that came around 4 years later. So basically for around 3 or 4 years, I think 4 years, I asked myself, if that's not this, then what it is, right? And starting my own company, as I said, was the last thing that I was planning at the time. So for me, it was like the very last thing that I had considered at some point. And yeah, basically some years later, I was doing my executive MBA because I thought that maybe can give me ideas about what I want really to do in my life. And then there were some courses about entrepreneurship and stuff, which I had to do, that was mandatory. I thought, all right, well, let me give it a shot, since I'm here. And then I realized that actually from a personality point of view and from who I am and my strengths and my weaknesses, actually that's exactly what I fit the most, It's not about competencies. Maybe it's also about competencies, but first and foremost for me was who I am as a person. What I like, what I completely dislike, what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are. And of course, the things are very much related.
Absolutely. I see. So it sounds like, again, that a lot of these things happened to you by accident. So you had your drive, you knew that you wanted to do more, you knew that you wanted to succeed. You mentioned that you didn't want to walk in your father's footsteps so much, but rather to create something for yourself. And you ended up in places where you knew you didn't really want to be, but you stuck it out while you were looking for your place, your space. And you ended up on these entrepreneur courses. You had to do them, and through doing them, you learned a little bit more, and it opened some doors for you. And when was Zandrin born? Like, when was the day you went, this is the thing I want to do, here it is? Was it a big revelation? You spoke about your 2 logical steps, or did it grow?
It happened actually in the context of some of these executive MBA courses and stuff that I was doing. And basically we had to, it was about entrepreneurs, and we had to pitch for some ideas that we had. And everybody was doing it, right? So I had to do it myself, even though I was not at all still serious about it. I was, just started thinking about it. And then I had to pitch the idea of Zandrin. Now, we didn't tell about what Zandrin is, but basically it's related to, analysis of babies' cries. And the idea came because my daughter was just born at the time. I think it was around 4 months or 5 months. And basically I pitched the idea, in front of the class, in front of the group, about some tools, some artificial intelligence to analyze the sound of the infant. But for me, it was just for the purpose of the exercise. But then actually, mandatory also part of that was to spend 2 days working on this idea. And then I spent 2 days working on it. And I realized that something was sticking on me. I was clicking, on me. I could see how this could develop. And I was actually intrigued by developing and the fact that, it could literally take any possible direction. And so at the time, I was still not sure. But then when I went home after this course, I started working, in my free time. And then basically, it was that plus a combination of events that at some point led me to the decision, all right, I could actually try it out. And I was not sure it would have worked. I was not even sure that actually that's what I wanted to do. Initially, it was just for fun. But that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years now.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So you touched a little bit on Zandrin, and I'd like you to give us an overview of the company, if you can. Tell us what it is, what it does, and is it working for you?
So what is Zandrin? So we are a Swiss startup. We're based in Basel, in Switzerland. And basically what we do is that we use artificial intelligence. So we are an AI company using sounds, and only sounds, of infant cries. So infant, we talk about babies, let's say between 0, so the day that they're born, until they're around 1 year and something. And what we do is that we use that sound and AI to analyze what they want in real time, the reasons why they are crying. And second point, which is what we are developing now, also to use the analysis of their voice to identify if there are certain pathologies or developmental disorder, just using the way that they cry. In very simplified terms, basically, whenever they cry in a certain way or another, not only depending on what they want, but also if there is something, let's say, I don't know, on the way that their brain is developing, on their, let's say, respiration and everything. So basically, all these things impact the way that they cry and the way that they develop their cry over time. And that's what Zandrin is about.
So if I could simplify it for any non-technically minded people, it's almost like a translator from baby cry into adult speak, or something that we can recognize and use and say, oh, baby's hungry or baby's tired.
Yeah. One part is exactly that. Yes, one part is your baby's crying, and then in real time, oh, my baby, I don't know, she needs to burp, for example. So that's one part of our technology. The translation part, actually, we call it. The other part instead is more clinical. Is also, the way that she cries and everything, and she's 6 months and stuff. So that could signal that, for example, this baby has a higher risk of, let's say, the standard population of developing autism, for example. So this is
and you can pick that up in the voice.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I suppose if something like this is working properly, it can, early prevention or early detection of illnesses and disease, that can make a massive difference in a person's later development.
Yeah, that's exactly the entire idea. In particular, for some pathologies and developmental disorder, now we're working mainly on developmental disorder. The fact you don't necessarily need a diagnosis, because in some cases it's even too early to have a final diagnosis. But the fact that that a certain baby has a higher risk than normal of developing some developmental disorder basically can completely change the way that this baby will develop, and the way that this baby, and then at some point adults will actually live for the rest of his or her life. And the first period is the most relevant, basically because the brain is still developing. So it's the only time that you can actually impact not only the way that the baby, let's say, behave, but also the way that the brain develops in the first year of life.
It's incredible. And tell me, I have to ask, are you using your children as guinea pigs?
Indeed, of course. Thankfully, as a father, let's say, so far they're all healthy and they don't have any developmental disorders or anything. But definitely from collection of cry sounds and data and needs, of course, yes. Not the first one. She was too old when we had the first beta, but the second one, yes, the one that was crying a few minutes.
Well, that's it. And you can always just have a few more and keep developing the program.
Babies, I think I'm done.
Well, so it's an awesome idea. I think it's incredible. I think there's a lot of parents out there that would really appreciate something like this. I know when I was, when I first became a father, I had no idea how my child was crying, and it took a long time for me to figure out, the differences and what was going on. Now tell me, Zandrin, is the company growing? How many people are there at the moment? Are things starting to take hold? Yeah. Tell us about the movement.
So the company, we do AI and we do something completely new. So it took some time to get to this point, 4 years, as I said. But now the company, in reality, for the last 2 years, the growth has been pretty much constant, because we have a product, we have customers, we have contracts, we have planned market launch and everything. Number-wise, now we are, I think, 14 or 15, don't recall exactly. But let's say we are not a small team anymore. And I think we hired 5 people from the beginning of the year. So the company is doing very well.
And what about the future? Do you have any big plans for the future? Where do you see things going?
So from that point of view, the vision for Zandrin is and has always been to be, let's say, the main, only, I don't know if only, or main, definitely, company for the analysis of infants' voice, right? Maybe not even only for the first year of life, maybe also beyond that, but basically to have the best solution globally for that, which we do have right now. But it's also like we're a startup, so we know that any day some bad news could come, and any day some new competitors could pop up, etc., etc. So our vision, nevertheless, is at some point to reach any house in the world, or be able to reach any house in the world where there is a baby, regardless whether they are in whichever location, etc., and whichever type of technology or economic possibility they have. Maybe in some countries or in some places they don't need the solution to understand if the baby is hungry or needs to burp, but they can definitely benefit for early detection in non-invasive, completely remote of pathologies or developmental disorder. So that's our vision. We want to be able to reach any single house where there is a baby all around the world.
I like that. And I see your company's got offices in both Spain and Switzerland.
Correct.
Have you got plans to open up anywhere else, or are you happy at the moment?
No, we are actually opening more locations. So probably we should have one in US end of the year, more or less. That's the plan. Then let's say, but more or less in some months, and then another one probably also in China, and then we see. But at least these 4.
That's fantastic. Projected growth there. And you mentioned, as a startup, you're worried about competition, you're worried about things changing, the markets are unpredictable sometimes. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in your journey so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's different maybe from a company point of view and a personal point of view. From a company point of view, I don't think competition is anymore, honestly, the highest risk on our side, because we are very mature now. We know also whoever is playing in the same space. For us, the main challenge, it was identifying then the model, basically, so to say, because we are creating a segment. It doesn't exist, right? So if you are creating the new Uber, well, then you probably have a lot of challenges in terms of competition and resources and fundraising and many other things. But the model probably is already there, right? So you have a reference. You can tweak it a little bit, but you know what to refer to. In our case, the segment doesn't exist. So we had to completely understand how to reach the market, who is even the customer at some point. All these different things we had to figure out ourselves. So that took us a while, a lot of try and error, and it was not easy. Many of our supposed competitors or competitors of the past, and now they're not there anymore, is because they did wrong choices in that side.
Okay, nice. So they're falling off on the wayside, which is good news for you. And tell me, with building the team, something I always like to talk about is the team and the team aspect. You've got some good people working for you. Are you personally involved with all the hiring, onboarding of new staff, that sort of thing? Do you take an active role in that, or are you more on the development sort of side?
No, I am still involved in the hiring. That doesn't mean that I'm the one, actively doing everything on that side. Also, in many roles, like the technical roles, I barely understand the job title, and definitely I'm not able to understand what the person is supposed to do or judge their competencies. So for this, other people take care of that. But I'm still involved in the final step of every interview, because I do the cultural fit, right? For us, having people that fit in the team from a personality point of view, cultural point of view, mindset point of view, is the most important factor, and often it's even more important than the actual competencies. Even for the technical roles, we prefer people that maybe have some gaps in terms of competencies compared to what we look for, but they are definitely a fit in terms of personality and culture compared to the opposite. Because you can't change a person's way of thinking, but you can, a person, if we all learn anyway a lot of stuff that we don't know every day. So that's not too much of a problem if some competencies maybe are missing.
So Roberto, a very interesting story you've got there. Tell me, is there anything else you'd like to tell us anything you think for our listeners is important to bear in mind when you're starting a company, when you're growing, looking for investment, building teams? What sort of advice do you have for our listeners?
No, there would be probably so many. So maybe the first one is look for people that can give you advice a lot. Talk with everybody. You don't have to listen to everybody. You don't have to do what everybody tells you. Also, because very often you hear very different feedbacks, maybe even going in opposite direction. But listen to them, think about them, etc. So that would be a first one. Second one, maybe if it is very, very early stage, a mistake that I saw many people do is to wait for the perfect idea. Perfect idea never comes. And even when you think you have the perfect idea, the same happened to us. I thought I had the perfect idea, and then we reshaped it multiple times over the years. That's fine, because at some point, even if you think you have the perfect idea, then it will evolve over time, and that's actually how it is supposed to go. So that's okay. If you feel you want to go, just go with something at some point. Maybe another bit of advice or two. First, take it as something funny, because it's going to be, at times, it's going to be horrible and tiring and very, very bad and so on. So if you don't take it as something funny and then let's see how it develops, it's going to, life will be miserable very soon. So that's not something that's a mistake that should not be done. And and then there has be able to, the other is be able to take risks, because if that was not risky, it would have been already done.
Okay, so be flexible. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Be flexible. Take advice. Listen. Be able to adjust and move within the markets. I really like that. And then I'd like to ask you. I always like to finish off with a couple words of wisdom or favorite quotes. Let me rephrase it. I like to finish off a favorite quote. Who's your hero? Do you have a hero? Do you have somebody you look up to? If you do, what is a quote maybe of theirs that you could share? Something for us to, a mantra, maybe for us to stick over our beds.
Sure, I'm going to accept this question. I'm not sure I have a personal hero or something that I look up after, so to say. But maybe that's another need. To become an entrepreneur, somehow you need to be somehow arrogant, right? Because you need to do stuff that either was never tried or it was tried and failed. So you need to be able to think that you have something special. So in this case, no, I cannot think of anybody in particular on top of my mind that I look after. No.
Okay. What's harder, being an entrepreneur or being a father?
It's doing the two things at the same time.
Doing both of them at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, and always feel guilty toward the others. When you work, you feel like you're taking time off your family, and the other way around. Definitely.
How do you balance it? How do you, I know you said in the beginning of this that you struggle. It's difficult to keep both things going, but a work-life balance, do you have any sort of routine exercise? Is there something you do to keep your mind sharp, to stay in the game?
No, and that's a problem. I mean, the way that I do balance, if that can be called balancing the two things, is basically I just take care of my family and work. These are the only two things that I do in my life. I basically cut anything else, sports, hobbies, stuff, free time and everything, which I'm not sure is the healthiest way of doing things, but that's the only way that I can run the two things at the same time. And I mean, taking care of your mental sanity, so to say, and not to burn out. I have plenty entrepreneurs that actually burnt out at some point. That's a constant risk, being fathers or mothers or not, being parents or not. So that's the other thing, maybe you constantly to worry about. Am I still able to run this, or do I need, before it actually gets too bad? So you also need to listen to yourself. And maybe one thing that I constantly try to tell myself is, sometimes it's okay to go slow, which maybe is the opposite of what, you would think about in an entrepreneur, because you have always 3,000 things that you need to do. But sometimes, hey, if I burn out, the company fails. If I do a little bit less this afternoon, that's okay, because maybe that's what I need in order to be able to work tomorrow, right? And the company needs me.
Well, look, Roberto, I'm going to say thank you. I know you got a couple things to get back to today. I really, on behalf of the team at Temi and our listeners, we want to thank you for sharing your insights and telling us your story. We wish you the best of luck. I'm looking forward to seeing where Zandrin goes, what you get up to, and we'll all be rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Matt. Thanks a lot.